the newsroom. In Italy, the politicians are back. The Eurozone's third largest economy finally has an elected government. The centre-left's Enrico Letta taking the reins from Brussels-backed technocrat Mario Monti, who for 17 months reassured markets but angered many voters. To break the gridlock that followed February's snap election, the 46-year-old Letta had to step in for the discredited Pierluigi Bersani and build what some might call an unlikely grand coalition with Silvio Berlusconi's conservative PDL party. Letta calling for growth, chastising Europe's, quote, crisis of legitimacy, but making do without, for instance, the anti-establishment five-star movement of former comedian Beppe Grillo, which stunned the system by garnering a quarter of the vote in that general election. Under pressure from the populists, can this grand coalition really work? Will Italy signal a fight back of sorts across Europe against austerity and the medicine prescribed by Berlin and Brussels? Today in the France 24 debate, Italy's grand plan. And with us to talk about it, Carlo Invernizzi, who teaches at the French Political Science Institute Sciences Po. Welcome back to the France 24 debate. Welcome back as well to Massimiliano Gambardello, who is with Beppe Grillo's five-star movement. Also with us from the International Herald Tribune, Anne Bagamary. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. And nice to see you as well, Paris-based German entrepreneur Jakob Hessler, who is with us. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate. The France 24 debate where you can always weigh in on the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. So, Italy's 17-month technocratic hiatus ended, you could say officially this afternoon, when Enrico Letta stepped up to the rostrum of the lower house of parliament.
Austerity policies alone will kill Italy. After more than 10 years without growth, we cannot wait any longer. We have to restart growth because we simply don't have any time left. Too many citizens and families are desperate and discouraged. We have to think about individual vulnerability that in a time of crisis and in the absence of hope may turn into rage and conflict.
Carlo Invernizzi, the speech there today, he hit a lot of different buttons, and you saw there trying to reassure people that that growth will be high on the agenda for the next government. How did he do?
Well, my impression is that this has been presented like an end of the technocratic government, but as a matter of fact, it is only political government by makeup. The reality, the coalition that underscores it is the same coalition that underscored the Monti government. And the policies that have been announced, although he has said that he wants to further growth, as a matter of fact, the way he wants to further this is not different from Monti. Monti too wanted to further growth. What he wants to do
lifted a controversial property tax, for instance.
Yes, he wants to decrease taxes, but he has said that he wants to keep the budget balanced in the same way. Therefore, this means decreasing spending. So the fundamental principles of austerity, I don't think, have been challenged yet.
So you would have liked to have seen him, take an axe to what Monti did?
I think I would have liked to see a difference in the way that we are dealing with this crisis. And that involves challenging some of the ideas that have led us into this crisis. For example, the idea that government spending is necessarily a bad thing for the economy.
Massimiliano Gambardello, do you regret the fact there was since from February until a couple of weeks ago, there was all this protracted negotiation going on with the five-star movement to try to get him on board. Do you regret the fact that your movement is out rather than in?
But okay, means nothing out and in. I mean, we are in the parliament. Of course, we are not in the government. But, I totally agree with him. This is just a make-up new politician or new government. Remember me, the Gattopardo. Everything has to change because nothing changed. Yeah. Who is Letta? Letta is part of the politician. Who are the majority in the parliament is PD plus PDL, means Berlusconi and Bersani. The same that fight a few months ago because there were the election, the same that Letta declared never with Berlusconi.
But is that partially your fault, since you guys could have been in the government to try to shake things up?
They don't ask us for a government. We propose the President of the Republic, and in this election of President of the Republic, it was important because it's the President of the Republic of Italy that say who is the President, the Prime Minister. So we indicated one of the Democrat Party. We indicate Rodotà. Rodotà, it was President of PDS, that is the oldest Democrat Party. I mean, if you know the history. So they say no. The question is why they say no to Rodotà, that is left party, is one of those parties, to have a deal with who? With Berlusconi. So, I mean, we do not fail. We just show that they are the same stuff. They do the same thing. There is an accord. We say that there is an accord before the election, and after the election, we have an accord. So we want to stay out this kind of accord.
All right, that's obviously the glass half empty. Anne Bagameri, the New York Times, describes Letta as a natural negotiator capable of building bridges between forces that barely speak to each other.
Well, I mean, that cabinet pretty much shows that. I mean, he's populated it kind of like Noah's Ark. I mean, there are a lot of women. There is the first woman of color in an Italian cabinet, I believe. You know, good for him. These are not token appointments. I mean, Emma Bonino, Anna Maria Cancellieri,
the foreign minister.
Yeah, foreign minister, justice minister. They've gotten pretty serious portfolios. But I have to agree with my two Italian colleagues on the panel. This is a compromise candidate who has come straight from La Casta, the political class. He has been formed in the same way. It's a little... I don't want to draw the parallel too tightly because, after all, Letta has just stepped onto the stage, and the fellow I'm going to mention has been on it for just about a year. I think he passed his anniversary just this week. But it's a little like Hollande. He looks different, perhaps. He says different things. He populates his cabinet with people who are going to please the electorate and make him think that new things are on the way. But at the end of the day, he comes from exactly the same place as the guys who got thrown out.
But you can say that he knows where the bodies are buried.
Well, you can say that too. Again, glass half full. Who knows? It's very, very early to say what this guy's going to do.
On Twitter, Fabrizio Gori, a financial reporter for L'Inchiesta, wrote the following: a great speech by Letta, but where is the money? And that is one of the issues, of course, coming up. Where is the money is, of course, a big consideration. By the way, Jakob Hesser, the markets in Milan jumped more than 2%. They were happy that there was a deal.
Yeah, but that's because markets value stability of any kind more than because it allows them to price their expectations.
That's right.
So they like that, and there's a little jump. It doesn't mean, to my view, it doesn't mean anything. No, I think there's 2 points about this that astonish me. One is where's the money, and I want to pick up on that. That real estate tax is, stopping it is to me a really interesting...
It was one of Berlusconi's big demands.
Yes, it was one of Berlusconi's big demands, and that to me is, I guess they probably couldn't do anything but having to accept that. But that to me is a serious blow into any serious attempt to rein in and to reform Italian economic governance. Because how can you, in a country where the net worth of citizens in euro per capita is twice as high as that in Germany, when you start having those who have money, you start making them pay. And now the first thing you do is you say, yeah, I want to stop austerity, but I'm not going to make those pay who have money. Maybe in Switzerland, go to northern Italy. That is, I find that signal to me is it needs interpretation. And I find, in as much as I agree that austerity can't solve Europe's problems and that the northern countries are the one that need to overcome austerity, spend more, buy more products from southern Europe, etc., etc. But to refuse to have the wealthy pay and share the burden of economic is similar to Greece, where the ship owners don't pay taxes, where the church doesn't pay tax. There is a question about the justice of the burden that needs to be addressed in Italy. So I can only say that to the two Italian guests. But
Carlo and Venezia?
No, I fully agree with you that the parts of Monti's program that have been challenged are probably only the good parts, which is increasing taxes, but not the other parts of austerity. I wanted to come back to one of the points that I think we agree on the analysis of this government. I think we fundamentally, however, disagree about what are some of the causes of this, because I think the five-star movement has a big responsibility in creating this alliance between PD and PDL, because they have refused. I agree with you that the PD made a big mistake on refusing Rodotà, but prior to it, I don't think you can deny that one of the reasons for Bersani's failure was precisely that he tried very hard to create an agreement with the five-star movement, which in its own interest, the five-star movement systematically rejected. Because of course this situation is advantageous for the five-star movement because they remain in opposition and therefore they can keep criticizing the alliance. So maybe we'll get back to that.
Okay, first of all, totally not. Just because, one, we were not in the parliament before, there were the agreement before in between PDL and the PD, so we were not there. There are 20
But
years.
Bersani's downfall was that he tried to form a government without Silvio Berlusconi.
And we say, if you put something true, in the sense that we have some point in our program, and we just ask, okay, just respect the program. In the program, they didn't respect. They put some program really, I would say, naive. So they just play the game, but he never say, okay, this is a good program. We have the 10 point, 20 point of five-star movement, and we put a new government. Remember that has a five-star movement during the election and generally in the blog of Beppe Grillo, also in doing all the talk that we have, we asked to have people different from the old politician, because we cannot believe that people like Letta, Napolitano, Bersani, Berlusconi, Brunetta, even if they are totally different, of course, I don't want to say that they are worst eagle. They are worst but differently, okay? But they cannot solve the problem that they create. So if you say me, Bersani want to have a government with five-star movement, it was possible, of course, but don't put Bersani or Letta or whatever as a prime minister. Put a new person as prime minister. So the person that can solve the problem, not the person that was there when the problem was created. If you create a problem, you cannot solve.
That demand of yours is not met. I want to get back to the point that Anne Bagamary made a short while ago, comparing the way this government was put about a little bit to that of the French president, François Hollande. Youth and women, as you were saying, figuring prominently. This former European Commissioner Emma Bonino, who's the new foreign minister, a new justice minister, who's a woman. And then there's foreign-born women. German-born Josefa Idem, who won Olympic gold in canoeing, is the new minister of youth and sport. There she is, the blonde one. And she's sitting next to Congolese-born Cécile Kyenge, the new minister for integration, Italy's first ever black cabinet member, which prompted a reaction many have deemed racist. From the separatist Northern League, saying Kyenge is the symbol of a hypocritical, do-gooding left that would only like to abolish the crime of illegal immigration and only thinks about immigrants' rights and not their duties. This sort of remark, is it shocking, is it new, or is it something that we often hear from the Northern League?
No, I fully agree that from a symbolic point of view, in a country like Italy, this is a big progress. Unfortunately, remarks like that by the League of the North are not uncommon, and even more unfortunately, they do correspond to a pretty widespread sentiment, retrograde sentiment in Italy. So from the point of view of these symbolic measures, I think this government represents a progress, but I want to emphasize that I think they are mainly symbolic and they come at a very low cost, these kinds of measures. The most important issues are the changing of politics and people, and from that point of view, even amongst the ministers, Cancellieri was a minister of Monti, there are at least a couple of Monti ministers, and all the main ministries are not as progressive.
And Becca-Mary, how long will this government last?
Oh, that's a very good question. I have no crystal ball on this, and neither do many other commentators. You see an awful lot of people saying they hope it doesn't last. They hope that this government forms, enacts a few basic reforms, and then there should be a new election to put somebody serious and legitimate in the post. I don't know what they're talking about. I really don't. This is the kind of thing where this may be the triumph of hope over experience. You really want this government to succeed because you like the way it looks. You're relieved that it came into being at all. And Italy desperately needs change in its labor market, change in its financial structure, and change in, I agree with my Italian colleagues, in the way, and my German colleague, the way you share the burden. Whether it's with the wealthy paying their share or the unions giving up some of the privileges that they have enjoyed, even the elected officials giving up the privileges they have enjoyed. Will this government be able to do that? It's a really, really close call.
Jacob Hessler?
Yeah, I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and the question is, what is the leeway they have? If the first measure you do is you abolish a tax that allows you to raise a couple of billion, now where are you going to take that money from?
Yeah.
And if you don't take it from the only sector that is known to not really produce growth per se, which is real estate that's already built, right? I mean, we're not even talking about construction. We're talking about you own a villa on Lago di Como, and then you have to pay some tax on that, like every other citizen in most European countries. And I find it is it's just a question of where are you going to take the money from if you give back that money, you can't, I mean, if you raise taxes on income, it will have a much wider spread effect on consumption, which will reinforce austerity much more than if you have one that is based on wealth. So there is really I don't know on what strings which strings they want to pull.
There's another way to look at it, which is that usually a new government, usually its first law or first decision out of the box is, at least in their own minds, the decision that gets them every other decision. This is what opens the door to everything else they want to do. Now, is this government betting that by removing the property tax, they're going to reassure the populace, stimulate consumption by putting more money into the hands of the people who will spend and perhaps create jobs? Is that what they're thinking? It's a guess at this point, but it would be logical to assume that somebody thought it through.
By the way, the vote on the new government has to also go to the Senate on Tuesday. And afterwards, the new prime minister is off to Berlin to visit Angela Merkel. We'll be talking about it when we come back. This is the France 24 debate.